Now, I must admit, with every birthday, I don't look any younger, but one area that does is the car industry, most notable, the Volvo. Hey, and welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I am your host, Grant Roberson. Now, decades ago, the Volvo hardly looked young and really redefined the box industry in the automotive world. Now, what they've done over those decades is put a little bit of youth behind the wheel. Now, what I love about what's offered behind me is just that, a lot of youth, a lot of spunk. So let's dive inside and check it out. Now, where the Volvo has really grown in youthful appearance has to be the profile. No longer do we see those straight lines and box-like exterior, but instead the profile like we see here on the 2015 and a half Volvo XC60. Now, this is, of course, a sport SUV and really kind of etch-a-sketches our brain from the old days to what we see here. Now, what I like for 2015 really is kind of the getting rid of all that black cladding, the contrast, and really putting body color all the way around, getting it more of a sleek, premium-like look. Now, you will notice a little bit of black here, a few chrome accents, but overall it's a nice sleek design for this 2015 model. Now, by the numbers, the XC60 measures in roughly with the competition, overall about 182 inches with a wheelbase around about 109. Now, what's great with the 2015 is they really emphasize the horizontal lines of this vehicle, really kind of with this low sleek roofline, this midline, and of course the lower third, all kind of giving you a presence on the road, all kind of giving that sleek design. Now, one thing I really like, of course, with the Volvo XC60 has to be ground clearance. With most SUVs, this one kind of borderlining on the premium slash maybe off-road is the ground clearance. Now, this one's going to measure in just over 9 inches, give you enough height to kind of get off the beaten path, and you can even wade water just over a foot high. Now, one of the most important features on any SUV for me has to be the rear cargo area, and just as important is the rear design. Now, what I like on the XC60 has to be this rear taillight assembly. Now, it is functional just as much as it's pretty, and where you're going to notice it is at night. As this rear hatch rises to the occasion, these actually illuminate the area. Now, one thing I noticed that actually all the other lights were shut off. These stay illuminated pretty much the entire time I was back in the cargo area. Now, one thing to also talk about has to be smart key systems. Now, this has it. You keep the key in your pocket. It's going to allow you to kind of walk up to the vehicle. It's going to know you're there and get access quite easily, and it is the case back here. Now, when you look at the rear cargo area, one thing to think about has to be the design. Once they start sculpting back here, kind of minimizes this rear hatch. Now, here on the XC60, they've actually kept it quite wide and full, and that's going to grant you the most access to this cargo area. Now, as you walk up here, you can pretty much press the corresponding button and this rear hatch is going to rise. Now, what you notice is it actually is fairly quick. We tested a Subaru just recently and its rear hatch was fairly slow. This one's got good operation. Now, one thing you're going to notice that since it is powered, it is quite hard to manually pull down, so you're going to have to use the corresponding button each and every time. Now, dive inside the cargo area, the first thing you'll notice is this premium carpeted that you see here, that versus like a Subaru, it's got like a protective rubber mat. Now, of course, you can buy one, put it back here. That's going to help protect this carpet long term. Now, one thing we found is kind of this rear hatch that kind of folds out of the way. Now, it took us a minute to really figure out the purpose. Was it a seat back for tailgating? But actually it has this nice strap. This is going to help hold items in place, really like plants or other things that you don't want tipping over as you're going down the road. Flip it up and it's going to do quite well. Now, as you pull up this rear cargo area, you're going to find another niche down below. This is going to hold a few items that you're going to keep in the vehicle quite a long time. Now, one thing we also found was this little packet here has some gloves and a bag, and we kind of took a minute, but what this is actually protect your hands from getting dirty, and a bag should you get a flat tire, shove it in the bag and you can store it. Now, what we did notice is there is a spare tire down here. It isn't technically full size because we're riding on 20-inch wheels. This is a 17-inch version, but you do have a spare with all the jacks kind of stored in place. Now, as you look at the rest of the cargo area, what you're going to notice is there are 4 tie-down hook straps at the corner. That's going to allow you to kind of put some bungees back here and some other accessories allowing to keep items in place. Last but not least is this kind of built-in tonneau cover that slides, really giving you some added security with these nice built-in niches that holds it in place. Now, just as quick as this rear hatch will raise, it actually is just as quick when it lowers. Now, at the back of any vehicle, you want to talk about safety and what are some key features. One of them being a backup camera and, of course, rear sensors. Now, one thing we did notice when you were in reverse, of course, it has the sensors, but it also has that kind of blind spot awareness. As you back up, should a vehicle be coming from your blind spot, it will alert you. Now, this one wasn't as sensitive as we've seen on other vehicles. Actually, the vehicle had to be fairly close when we finally heard the audible noise. Now, one area I haven't talked about in a while has to be the lack of rear pop-up glasses in SUVs. Only a few of them have it, and what it really allows you to do is kind of keep the rear tailgate down, pop the glass, throw some items in there, and this kind of acts like a little wall. The biggest problem why we don't have pop-up glasses has to be the mounting of this rear windshield wiper. Now, one thing we noticed on the recent Tahoe redesign, they actually put the windshield wiper up here. It slides down. Back in the old days, a lot of vehicles had like a two-tier rear tailgate that allowed you to kind of have this pop open, this fold down, and we're just getting away from that. I think we need to go back to the rear tailgates, allowing us to get access right here through this glass. Now, this was the T6 edition that we drove, and that once meant 6-cylinder to the hood, but now that whole mindset's actually been replaced. Now it comes with a 2.0 liter direct injection 4-cylinder engine that both has a super and turbocharger. Now, what that all means is it delivers great horsepower, around about 305 with 295 foot-pounds of torque. Now, what I found was when you really hit the gas, it really responds, and the only thing is with that torque, that steering wants to kind of shift to the left, so you basically want to hold on with both hands. Now, one of the best features on the design of this vehicle has to be all angles, the side, the front, and the rear. Now, up front, you're going to see this kind of menacing diving front end. A lot of SUVs are going to, giving it more aerodynamic-like appeal. Now, chrome is kept to basically a minimum, and the front headlights mimic the rear end, giving a stylized approach to this overall design. Now, climbing inside the XC60, one of the first things you'll notice is the two-tone premium leather stitched seating that you see. Now, it does take a little bit of getting used to, not the style, but actually the sports seating. Now, what I noticed is once I climbed inside, really there was a lot of lumbar support that I thought maybe you could adjust, when in actuality, this is actually how they feel. So what that means is you're actually going to have to kind of squeeze inside, as these seats are quite snug. Now, on the dash, you're going to find the typical LCD screen. The only thing here, maybe it's a little on the small size, measuring about 7 inches, where maybe some other vehicles are going upwards of 8 to 9. Now, what you're going to notice is it's not touchscreen, but actually down below is a whole bunch of corresponding buttons that we've seen for years. Now, this kind of interesting cluster of buttons really is stereotypical of what I've seen on Volvos, with the numerical down in the middle and a lot of operations here on the side. Now, they've really simplified it with a nice volume control and the function button over here on the right. Now, climate is kind of built in all this area too. May take a little bit of a learning curve, really, with the fan speed being very small, when maybe it needs to be a little bit on the bigger side. Now, to the left and right is the dual climate controls, a dial-in number system that corresponds with the screen, and some nice vent controls that really make this whole operation fairly simple. Now, down below all the climate control functions and radio are a few more that relate to as you're driving. One nice feature really being the headrest tumble forward button. Now, what you'll notice as you're driving, those rear headrests maybe create kind of a blind spot. Press this button, they'll actually tumble forward. Now, this one is the lane departure system. Allows you to kind of be alert should you veer left or right. Really good for those late night drives. Now, this one is the on-off auto start function. Now, what this does is when you're going down the road, you get to a stoplight, the car will actually shut off, saving fuel consumption and all that. And this can be kind of startling to those who don't prefer it. Press the button, of course, it's going to turn it off and guzzle more gas. Now, the other two really relate to safety. A collision alert kind of gives you a heads up as you're going down the road, and of course the backup sensors when you're parking. One area that's found the biggest change is behind the steering wheel, where a lot of vehicles are going now to the digital display like you see here, replacing the old analog, having one huge center speedometer and tach in one area. Now, what I liked about this display is it had the kind of power display on the right, and it had the up-to-date information, most specifically the speed limit based on the area you're at. Now, I'm a big fan of Wi-Fi hotspots, and I've seen them on a few Chryslers, and we see it here on the Volvo. Now, it's right under the My Car kind of insignia here, and as you scroll up, what you're going to see on the dash is internet settings. Now, it takes a little minute to kind of scroll through, but basically you're going to be able to kind of get in there, set a Wi-Fi hotspot. It's going to give you the Wi-Fi password, and pretty much can connect your various devices right here, plain and simple. Now, I must admit, I had the iPhone 6 Plus, and maybe there was a slight connectivity issue with my phone, because even with the password plugged in, I just could not get it to connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot. But once all that kind of gets ironed out, I'm sure it's a nice seamless operation. Now, one nice feature we really love was the huge glass roof. Add a little bit of stargazing with the press of a button. Now, that we've seen this on a lot of vehicles, and what it allows it to do is get a lot more light inside the vehicle. Now, one thing to note, the screen is kind of a mesh, lets a little bit of light and maybe a little bit of heat, but if you want to pop the glass, that's going to give you a lot more of that open air feel. Maybe turn this four-door into a convertible. One thing to think about on any SUV, of course, is the legroom numbers. Now up front, you're gonna have about 42 inches of space, which is gonna be typical across the board. Now swing around to the back, anything above 35 inches is going to be kind of at least above average. Now this vehicle is going to be around about 36 inches, going to handle everything quite fine. Now one thing I really like to talk about is kind of back seat comfort, and one big key feature of that comes to children. I have 4 of my own, one of them still in a booster, so why not include it here in the second row? And they do that. Now what you do is you press a button here and this will actually come up. Now it's going to allow little children to really kind of have their booster right here in place, and of course you got to make sure it's the right age and the right situation for your child. Now as always, if you want to switch this area over to cargo, they've got to make it simple, and they do that. Now a lot of them put a kind of a handle here. Here on the Volvo, they got 2 options. One, you can tumble the headrest forward. That's going to allow you to have, again, that clean view. And you can pull the handle here and it's going to tumble forward with ease. Now what I really like is the fact that this is one seamless floor system, no cracks or crevices, really allows any cargo to fly in here quite easily. As you can tell, back here is plenty of leg room, really, with that seat back being where I typically would have it. Still got plenty of comfort. Now looking at the center position, that can be maybe the least comfortable spot. And what's interesting, we have headrest, and nothing really here. Well, actually they fixed that just the same. It's hidden right here. You raise it up. Now that's actually quite a big pillow to have on those long trips. Now last but not least is when you do have 2 backseat passengers, you want to have nice support here in the middle, and they have a huge wide elbow support. Plus the dual cup holders have this nice built-in area. It's going to hold all your drinks quite well, and nice elbow support. That does it for this edition of Road Warrior. And I test drive behind the wheel of the 2015 Volvo XC60. Now, of course, Volvo brings to the table everything you expect, from innovations to safety to premium quality. Now, I'd like to thank you again for watching this edition of Road Warrior. And as always, keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.